Nobody studies Generation X. We argue about boomers. We analyze millennials. We obsess over Gen Z. But Gen X? They're quiet. And psychologically, that silence is not accidental. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980, may be the most emotionally self-contained generation alive today. And the reason is buried deep inside how their brains were wired. Imagine being 9 years old. You come home. The house is empty. No texts, no tracking apps, no check-ins. Just silence. For millions of Gen X kids, this wasn't unusual. It was normal. This environment activated something powerful in the developing brain: early autonomy. When children repeatedly solve problems alone, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, strengthens faster in practical ways. The brain adapts to independence. But here's the psychological twist. When independence is not chosen but required, the brain also reduces its expectation of rescue. Gen X didn't learn, "Someone will help." They learned, "Figure it out." That belief stays for life. Gen X grew up in an era where emotional discussion was minimal. You didn't process feelings. You handled them. Neuroscience shows that when emotional expression is discouraged, the brain strengthens inhibitory control networks, meaning feelings are managed internally rather than externally expressed. This doesn't mean Gen X feels less. It means they reveal less. To younger generations, this can look like detachment, but psychologically it's emotional compression. Gen X remembers a world before digital permanence. Mistakes disappeared. Embarrassment faded. Life wasn't archived. So their threat detection systems developed differently. When social media emerged, many Gen X adults experienced it as exposure, not connection. Their brains were shaped in a privacy-based environment. Visibility feels risky. That's why many of them observe more than they post. Gen X witnessed corporate layoffs, rising divorce rates, political scandals, economic instability. When a developing brain repeatedly sees systems fail, it adapts by lowering blind trust. Psychologists sometimes call this defensive pessimism. But in reality, it's predictive adaptation. Their brains learned, expect change, expect instability, prepare quietly. This is why Gen X often thinks several steps ahead. Not because they're negative, because unpredictability was their normal. Here's something fascinating. Gen X does not attach identity to titles. They attach identity to capability. Why? Because they watched authority fail. So instead of respecting hierarchy, their brains learn to respect competence. If you're skilled, they trust you. If you're not, your title means nothing. This creates a generation that is quietly confident, internally competitive, deeply independent, but highly dependable. Many Gen X adults appear unusually calm during chaos. This isn't accidental. Their nervous systems adapted early to unpredictability. Repeated exposure to mild instability during development can increase stress tolerance later in life. They learn to stay steady because no one else was steering. But there's a cost. High self-reliance often reduces help-seeking behavior. Gen X is less likely to ask for support, not because they lack relationships, but because dependency feels uncomfortable. Gen X grew up analog. They built digital. They remember card catalogs and now manage cloud systems. This created cognitive flexibility. Their brains had to transition between two worlds, and transitions build adaptability. They are the psychological bridge between scarcity and abundance, privacy and exposure, stability and disruption. Bridges don't demand attention, they hold weight. Generation X isn't loud. They're not trying to dominate the conversation. But psychologically, they may be one of the most resilient generations alive. Self-reliant, private, competent, quietly adaptable, not invisible, just understated, and maybe that's their greatest strength. If you enjoy deep psychological breakdowns like this, subscribe to Hidden Mind Psychology. Because the mind is never random. It's shaped.